always call me and ask me those things. So as far as the presentation goes for the audit, I'd like to just look at page 3 on the audit. It's the statement of net position. So basically this is just summarizing all of your governmental activities in one column and all of your enterprise activities in another column. Your enterprise activities are the 4 enterprise activities: water, sewer, solid waste, and airport. And then governmental is everybody else: general fund, fire fund, CDBG fund, and so forth, TOPS fund. And so as far as the net position goes, and as far as your overall financial strength and the existing fund balances of the city, all in good shape. Current ratio, which is your current assets, that's in the next 12 months, versus your current liabilities in the next 12 months, is in very good shape. That's the ratio there, which you always want above 2.1. You always want, 2.1 is good. Above that, so you're looking really good. So the city has that on both the governmental side and the enterprise side, so that's good as far as the reserves go. And then page 5. I'd like to go down to page 5, and that is just the governmental side. And so on the governmental side, again, financial position of the general fund, pretty solid, as far as the current ratio, as far as financial strength, pretty good. Has an unassigned fund balance of $380,000 at the end of the year, so that's good, And then I would like to point out a few of the governmental funds and one of the enterprise funds that has a negative fund balance. Negative fund balance is basically a result of, if we talked in business terms, you lost money. Business wasn't profitable. So this, the CDBG fund has a small negative, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that, the managing of that fund after all of the loans, basically, if you know how CDBG works, you get the money from them, you loan it out in the form of housing or economic development or whatever, and then those people pay it back. And so sometimes you run into issues with people not paying, going on deferral or whatever, and then you can't cover your current expenses. So it's only a $12,000 negative. It's not that bad, but I like to point those negatives out to you. And then if you go to page, I'll pull my glasses here. Page 36. So if you go to page 36, which is your small, or what we call non-major funds. Let's see here. Sorry. Yeah. That is your local transportation fund, your gas tax fund, your EDBG fund, your fire assessment fund, and so forth. There's a couple negatives there as well. One of them is the gas tax fund. And so when we look at these, everybody there?
I haven't been anywhere. You said the whole time. You said page 3.
Well, there's a page 3 on a number on the bottom.
Yeah, we figured that out. And when you said 36, then it was 36.
Okay. Is there a 36?
Yeah, there's 36, but I don't see what you're talking about on that 36.
Okay. You see page 36 says the combined balance sheet.
What is your
John, don't do that.
Well, it says pension plan.
Combined balance sheets after page.
Okay, here, I got a question. It's very simple. What page is that? Page is that?
Okay, so,
Here, let me just point out to you, so you don't think I'm stupid. Page 27, page 36.
so
I don't know where those.
My agenda is.
Yeah.
Watch on the,
so what it is.
look at the one in the middle.
So basically the audit itself has its own page number set, so that
Well,
one.
because I look over at you and you're not reading what I'm looking over at you and you ain't got the same
Yeah.
paper as you got.
So just to
that's what-
clarify for the general public, there's an audit number on the actual report, and then when it was submitted to the agenda packet, it also got an agenda packet number.
Oh.
So that's what's happening,
Oh, I
so.
did that.
Oh, I see.
And of course, it's gonna be Big David got confused.
No, I was a little confused too, because we were not on the same page, and I was like, I was looking around. So, just focus on the middle numbers.
Okay.
So we're on 36. So I apologize. Please-
No sweat, no sweat. So again, there's a couple of negatives on this page as well. The major one that stands out is the gas tax fund.
46.
And the gas tax fund, really shouldn't be a negative. It's, money comes in from gas tax and money gets spent, and so you really don't run a negative. If you run a negative, then what's happening is that the Public Works Department of the general fund ends up footing the bill for that negative, okay? Because you have a Public Works Department in the general fund, and then you have the gas tax fund. They both work on primarily the same things: streets, roads, and maintenance and so forth, street lighting and all of that. And so that's what ends up picking up this negative. So it's important to keep in mind when we're going forward and you're doing budgeting for the current year, and you're looking at the financial strength and the financial status of certain funds, gas tax fund shouldn't be a negative. So if it is, you got to clean that up with basically an input or some kind of influx of the general fund money to pick that up. And so that's important. And then as far as the other pretty good sized negative that I want to point out is going to be on page 8. So if we go to page 8 of the audit, which is your enterprise fund,
It's the airport.
it is the airport. And I want to help us understand this column, the column of the airport. You can see, everybody there?
Okay, then.
Okay, no problem.
Go ahead.
I got all night, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I want to help us understand this column. The airport has some assets, no doubt, right? I mean, it has the non-depreciable assets. It has the depreciable assets that are out there, land and so forth is in the non-depreciable. So you can see this number, roughly on a cost basis, roughly $2 million. And so you can see down at the bottom in your net position, the exact same number, $2 million. And that's your fund balance or your investment in those capital assets. So I want you to just kind of take those and remove them and then zero in on everything else. Because when you zero in on everything else, that's really your financial picture. I mean, you can sell all your assets, great, but who knows what you're going to get for them. And you don't want to necessarily do that. So let's
It's
just...
an operation and maintenance.
Yeah, so these other numbers here, your current assets and your current liabilities and your long-term liabilities is showing the true financial strength when you exclude those assets, right? And it's upside down. It's a negative fund balance of 121,000, almost 122. So it's just important. Again, what funds that? Water can't fund it. Again, going back to this Prop 218 thing. Water can't fund airport and so forth. So basically you're looking at a general fund funding that money. So what I want to point out is that going forward in the future, this needs to be addressed because right now, if the general fund is funding this negative and the gas tax negative, then you're now taking that 380 I told you about on the general fund side, and you're bringing it down by 144,000. That's quite a bit of money.
Well, if I could, Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
the one question I have is that I think it needs to be clear here that part of what we're dealing with is a amount that's been accrued over a period of time.
Yes, this was not all current year. This was this fund balance. Your fund balance is like in a normal business, your retained earnings from the day you open shop to whatever time you're looking for, right? It's just an accumulation. So this has been going on for years.
Yeah, and if I could then, with the fact that it has been going on for years, the idea is that I want to make clear to the public that what the airport committee has been working on nonstop is getting to the point of sustainability. And we're looking at basically about a 20,000 each year, isn't it? Roughly about a 20,000, which basically comes in large part from the work that's being done by the people that goes up there that maintain it. So I just don't want it to sound like we're losing that amount of money each year. It's a matter of, on one hand, it's been in the past, on the other hand, we're working hard towards sustainability. So thank you.
Yes.
Is there a number maybe in the column that could maybe represent, you know, what typically we are expecting as a rate? What we experience as far as, you know, how much we contributed to that debt this year in that account?
Well, yeah, so if you go to the next page, which is your net income from or loss.
Yes, 9.
Yeah, your page 9. And you look at your net income from operations there, and you know, it lost $118,000 for the year. Now, 100 of that is depreciation. Okay, so that's what we consider non-cash. Now, that's not necessarily a good rule of thumb. You don't necessarily want to lose every year, including depreciation, because then you put no reserves aside for future capital improvements. So that's not, you know, but from a cash standpoint or from a true net loss standpoint, it was about 18,000 was added to that deficit. So yeah, like Bruce said, or Councilmember Bruce, sorry.
George.
Said was that this has been going on for, you know,
And
it's an accumulation of many years.
And it went through 4 years where nothing was really being done, so that was 4 years where we didn't have an opportunity to be working towards sustainability. So I just wanted to be clear, we're still in the comeback phase right now. So, thank you.
And I think that as long as then the council, the airport committee along with the council develop a balanced budget approach of sustainability, then you stop the current bleeding, and then you can deal with getting this thing taken care of and getting the fund balance back to, let's say, a break even. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out. You guys can then settle on how you want to go forward. All right. And so if there's any questions on that, otherwise I'll continue to move on. The only other thing I want to do is go to page 32.
I'm glad we have that intervention. All of a sudden, it's so much easier to follow what you're doing.
Oh, good. 36 should be, I'm sorry, 32.
Yeah, dude.
I'm really confused. I'm not trying to do it. It should be the budget versus actual for the general fund. Okay. So in this, there's nothing alarming on this. I just want to point out that, especially for the new council members, budget versus actual for your constituents is probably the most important thing you could be doing. I mean, besides, you know, trying to fulfill your promises and trying to just manage the city in an honest way, making sure the budget is adhered to during the year, and from an appropriation side, which is your expenditure side, that is a non-negotiable thing. That's a legal requirement that you cannot exceed appropriated funds, your appropriations that you set up for the year. And so it's just really important to keep on this budget versus actuals, which means you got to make sure the staff's doing their thing, make sure Blake is getting the monthly close done, and getting those financial statements prepared for you and getting those budget versus actual. This should be done minimal on a quarterly basis. I know you guys are heading to your semi-annual or half-year budget review. That's okay. From a council member individual standpoint, I would like to see, and I'd like to encourage you guys to do it at least quarterly. To just review it, come to staff or bring it to council or however you want to do it, address those concerns you might have when you're reviewing the budget. But it's constituents have elected you to spend the money wisely, right? And so that all has to do with the budget. And so I like to say this to all the cities, all the different various local governments that I do, is just to make sure that everybody understands how important the budget is and how important then the budget versus actual review is. And so again, nothing alarming. We didn't exceed budget in the general fund. You do need to make sure you budget for all funds. That was another little thing with CDBG, it didn't get budgeted for. There was no budget for CDBG. Well, you got to budget revenue and expenditure, even if it might be just interest income and then a little bit of city admin costs or whatever. You know, you got to still budget. All the funds should be budgeted. Required funds are the major funds. And just so you know, the major funds are your general, your CDBG, and your 4 enterprise funds. Those are your major funds. All the rest, if you didn't want it, but then LTC has a separate little thing. So your LTF fund has to have a budget. So not from an audit standpoint, but from an LTC, Citizen County LTC standpoint, right? So you're better off just to budget everything. Just budget every fund, revenue, expenditures, and then take a look at those actual results, like I say, at least on a quarterly basis. The city this size and above, I even recommend doing it on a monthly basis. It doesn't hurt. And then make sure that Mark's real good about budget amendments, so make sure those budget amendments are being done, that no category is getting exceeded. So if you look at this page and if you see city council or city administrator or city clerk category being exceeded, then that's technically not correct. You know, that's not a legal way to go. Now, if it's minor and it's offset by positives or favorables in other categories, okay, not a big deal. But you want to take a look at that, you want to keep and then discuss it with staff and so forth. So, just want to make sure everybody understood that.
If I could,
Yes.
how would you, just for the public's sake, how would you evaluate the work you've done with Blake and his team and with the city manager?
Good. Well, good. I had no problems with the audit. We are under budget as far as the budget for the audit goes, and that's good. We've even, I think we even have some money within the budget to do some training. So Mark and I and Blake have discussed just doing some training. You know, Blake's got a learning curve as normal. I mean, if he came from one city finance director to another, that would be different, but he didn't. And so he's got this learning curve. And so, you know, I'm going to help with that learning curve and kind of get him up to speed on a few of these important areas, such as budget versus actual, how to close the books. You know, just make sure he got a good handle on what steps are taken to close the books. So, yeah, we've addressed all that. But again, all the staff got me everything. Real good timing. You know, no disagreements, no discrepancies. So. There were 2 findings, and so that's what I want to close with, and that kind of leads into that as well. Both of these findings are the repeat findings from the prior year, and because you had the transition from Pam to Blake, there wasn't really a time to address that finding, these 2 findings. But the first finding is that there are material audit adjustments being made, and that means that I'm doing more of the year-end close than the finance director or officer or whatever, you know, more than the city is. You know, I'm involved a little bit more than I should be. So the finding is that you need to address that. You need to get either outside help or internal assistance in order to get a cleaner set of books for the auditor to audit. So there aren't so many material audit adjustments. When we have material audit adjustments, it means that I have to kind of start to act like management and say, well, you know, we need to fix this area. Well, you know, if I get into that position, then I'm kind of acting as management, because they go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, we need to fix that. I didn't know it was out of balance. And so that's why we have an audit finding. That's why it's a material weakness. But the city did implement by hiring Blake. He's got good financial background. I think most of the training is involving how to deal with the local government finances versus just regular. So I think that, and he came in so late in the year that it just really wasn't time to get that learning curve over with before the audit. So I think that this year, we've already discussed, he's got the bank reps up to date, everything's going well there, and just little things like that. So I think that this finding, I think, should go away next year. I'm looking forward to that. So I think that's good. I think we're going in the right direction there. The second finding is the subsidiary ledgers. So for instance, you got an accounts payable system, you got an accounts receivable system, you got a payroll system. All those little subsidiary systems have to tie to the general ledger system. General ledger system's like, you know, it's the one we audit. And so when your subsidiary ledger, let's say your accounts payable listing at year end, doesn't tie to the general ledger accounts payable accounts at year end, then you got some kind of a problem, right? So I talked with management about this, and we've kind of discussed a couple of the options, and I think that they can then discuss those with you and decide on a path. But it could possibly, one of the options I recommend is taking a good hard look at your accounting program. Because I'm not in favor of that program. I've seen I audit a lot of cities. A lot of cities use fund balance, and I see a lot of issues with that program itself, just in the operating of it. And so, not from a personnel standpoint, but from a program standpoint. So I think they should take a hard look at that. It may or may not be something they want to replace. And of course, replacement will be some costs, so you have to take that into account as well. And so I think that's one area, and the other area is for, Blake to basically dive in and find out what the problem is and then fix it. So those are the two options I've discussed with management. I think that Blake is caught up enough to where he's going to start to tackle that issue as well. So.
Thank you. I'd like to open up to city staff if you'd like to add anything else to the presentation.
Yeah, I would like to add that it's been a pleasure working with Charlie. He came in late last year. Our prior contract auditor ended up backing out, and we went out with a RFP. Charlie came in late into the game and got us back on track. So this is the first full year where he's come in and really worked with the staff, and it's been a pleasure working with him. He's very proficient at identifying things and pointing things out to us. So, in the honesty, I really enjoyed the honesty. And I've worked with quite a few different auditing firms, and it's nice when you have somebody that is very personable and easy to talk to, and that's what we have here with Charlie. So we're learning a lot and moving definitely in the right direction. And with that also, Blake being our new finance director, been here just a short time. We've really made strides to improve upon the budgeting process. And a lot of the stuff that Charlie is pointing out has been in prior notes in the past audits. And this is, I would say right now, is really where we've been working hard to take a firm stance at addressing these audit findings. We're looking, Blake has been working on doing a policy development. He's got a template. He's been working on writing policies. He's got all, as Charlie mentioned, all of our bank recs up to date, so they're getting done month to month now. And he is working towards getting all the other things that Charlie's talking about. So I know we're on the right track, and I'm excited about that. And again, next year's budget, I expect to encompass all the things that Charlie was talking about, and we're looking to constantly improve on that. And I agree, the budget is the most important thing for the council and for myself, and of course the finance department, where we're bringing in the staff. We're bringing in the supervisors for each department, which is something that they're not accustomed to. We had our public works supervisor coming in today asking about, can I do this and can I do this? And it used to be a daily thing. Now they know I need to go talk to Blake and see where we're at in our budget. And that's something that Blake is also working on, is to have a training. We're looking at doing that here in the next probably 4 weeks with each department supervisor going over again the budget. So this is the second year we've done budgeting where the department heads were involved in the budget process. So they're starting to understand how the budget process works. And it's one of those things that's kind of double-edged sword where they get to understand the budget and get to make more intelligent requests and more intelligent justifications for the request, but then they're also held to those requests and there's accountability to that. So we're definitely headed in the right direction with the funds and accountability.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I've really enjoyed working with Charlie. I think he's awesome. I think he's great. And
I didn't pay these guys.
You ain't getting a tip either.
yeah, because I need to get going and work on it. November should probably be closing soon, so I need to go work on November close right now.
Thank you. Council members, did you have any questions for Charlie or city staff regarding the audit?
Just thank them for their time.
Councilmember Art.
Mr. Pilling, your transmittal letter, the second page, other matters,
Mhm.
it starts out by saying required supplementary information, accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America require the management's discussion and analysis not presented. Is that something that exists elsewhere, or we don't do that?
Well, it typically, it is a requirement of GASB, but it's typically not done by the cities because it's very difficult to present a condensed version of the MD&A with all the funds that you have. And so it's just a very difficult exercise. Most cities just elect not to do it. There is no penalty for not doing it. So it's just one of those things that it's very, very common to see this kind of language.
What is its purpose?
The MD&A's purpose is to take the entire audit report and try and summarize it in about 4 or 5 pages. And like I say, that's easy to do when you're a special district with one fund, like an RCD or a cemetery district or a fire protection district. It's pretty easy. But with multiple funds, and some cities have up to 20, 25, 30 funds, to do that is almost impossible. And so the audit report does a good enough job, and that's why most cities elect to. Cities that want to produce an MD&A end up doing what we call a CAFR. A CAFR is a comprehensive report, and that has its own. I mean, if you did a CAFR, your audit fee would double because the CAFR is brutal. I mean, it's just a big old document. It's a lot more than just the audit that has to go into CAFR. Counties do it. Your LTC, I think you're part of the LTC commission. The LTC is part of, just a little part of, LTC is pretty big. It's just a little part of the Siskiyou County CAFR. So, and so that's what cities do. Big cities will do a CAFR, like the city of Reading will do a CAFR, and that it will include a summary kind of version of that MD&A. But the smaller cities, really, you just don't see it much. And so it's not, it's like I say, it's not it's not an issue to not have it in there. As long as we say, hey, it is required, but we've omitted it, okay. And then I state, as you can see, I state that my opinion isn't changed because of that omission, so it has nothing to do. And it is a city document. If you were to do the MD&A, it would be a city document. I wouldn't audit it in anyways. So it's just one of those things. So.
Thank you.
Hope I explained that.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you, city staff, for the item. We appreciate that. Oh, we do.
Is there an action item?
It was just a presentation,
Oh, okay.
so I believe that may
Nice try.
We'll do that
Yeah.
next time.
Yeah. No,
Nice try.
I
Well,
was
actually, you are supposed to accept the audit in a formal motion. So you can do that next time.
Yes. Okay, I was checking that because I was wondering about opening up to public comment, but it's just a presentation, and then we'll do that. So thank you so much, Charlie. And again, I encourage council members, if you peruse the audit and have any additional questions, please send those to City Manager Brannigan and Finance Director. So I will move us into agenda item number 12, committee reports. We'll start with the Economic Development Tourism Committee.
We had a very positive Economic Development Committee. We met a couple weeks ago, and we had a representative from the Economic Development Council there, Bethany Mueller, and we recommended to come to the council, January to February? February, right?
We're looking at February. They're hoping to be here tonight, over the closed session and the travel.
Yeah.
They're most likely going to be here at the next council meeting.
No, I'm talking about for the industrial park?
Yeah, that's in February.
Oh, yeah, February. Okay, so in February, we're going to have a meeting, a presentation to the council And what it's going to be about is an industrial park that we're looking to develop with the 78 acres east of the airport. And we have been looking at that for a while. We've made it clear that there are 2 separate parcels up there, and the parcel we're talking about is ours to use, whether it be lease or sale. And we've had some exciting news in the last meeting, and that is that Richard Dinges has a fellow that he works with who does these kind of developments. And the fellow that he works with who does these developments has says that he'd be willing to do an upfront to do the layout and business plan for it. And we also might be able to do some work along the same lines with the engineering plan. So we might be able to get to the point where we can start showing developers that we've got something to be interested in. And the fellow who is doing this is somebody who works with people like UPS and FedEx. And so from our standpoint, for people who aren't familiar with the idea, we're looking at perhaps putting in like 8 different large warehouses or what are called tilt-ups. We've already looked at the topography. Richard Dinges and this other fellow down south have been looking at the topography, and they've identified a way to put in 7 large warehouses, office buildings, whatever. And the idea would be that we would find a developer that would want to move in there perhaps for a distribution center. We're located in an extremely good position halfway between Portland and the Bay Area and Sacramento. And we have not only the interstate there, but we have an airport. And so the airport is what we're going to be counting on to look for companies that would want to be able to fly in and fly out on a regular basis. We can't handle large aircraft, but we can handle business class aircraft. So what we think is we might be able to find a developer that will do the development, put the whole bill, and then be able to start giving us $12,000, $12,000 a month down the line once we start getting some businesses in there and start getting rent. So when I said that the airport is moving towards sustainability, this is the ace in the hole, and it could open up a huge revenue stream for the city and a source for jobs. So that's what we're working on in the Economic Development Committee, and we'll be coming back with a presentation in February.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the Finance Committee reports.
And we have nobody from the Finance Committee at this point. I would recommend that, whoever's going to be on that, we'll get to that, and then they can come back with whatever we need.
All right, perfect. Public Facilities and Services.
None of those either.
All right. So pretty much the rest of the committee reports, or is there a
No, let's see,
airport?
let me go back to the front here, I got confused. I have the airport, I can give you an airport.
Okay, airports next.
Mark, do you want to give it, you've got the latest on all this.
The airport committee met on Tuesday at noon, and items of discussion, we currently have an airport layout plan that was put out the contract, and the contractor has submitted the draft airport layout plan to the FAA, waiting on response from them so that they can do the responses back. So that's where the airport layout plan is currently at. We're in the FAA review stage. Also, we are in contract with the engineering for the runway replacement. One of the things that we're hoping for is to receive 100% discretionary funding from the FAA to repave the runway out there. Application has been accepted in the submittal. Letters were sent to our congressman, Congressman LaFada, and we're waiting on him to get those things, hopefully a supporting letter to Washington, D.C. as well, to hopefully get us some funds to repave the runway. The other thing that we've talked about is, one of the things that the auditor was talking about was sustainability for the airport, and we're looking at not just the development that we're talking about with possible hangars or storage buildings up there, commercial industrial. We're looking at fees, what can be done out there to bring in additional revenue. And what we're looking at is trying to bring a balanced budget for the airport back to the council for consideration next year. So increasing fees out there will help to provide services that they hope to continue to receive. So those are the things that we're looking at for the airport, and it was a productive meeting.
Thank you. Any questions? All
I
right.
have one. You said we're in contract with company for engineering for repaving. Could you elaborate on our business relationship with that company?
Yes, so Heath Hildebrand is the engineer that we're working with of Dyer Engineering, and They were the engineers that did the pavement management
Through an
plan. Yeah, and what we've done is we streamlined and got the contract going in a hurry so that we can get the plan done by December. So the engineering for the runway, I believe, is at getting close to an 80% mark right now, very fast track. It's 100%, well, the grants are all covered through our salaries and we get reimbursed for my time and finance director's time working on the project. And also additional grant funds that we receive from the NFA. So we're fortunate there, it's not any additional cost within the budget. And it needs to be done by December so that it's a shovel-ready project, hopefully to qualify and get that 100%.
By December when? By the end of December?
By the end of December. what we're looking
Yeah,
at.
so basically the idea is that to get into the ballgame from where we were back in 2015, we had to do an airport layout plan and a pavement management plan. And then so we're still finishing up the airport layout plan. The pavement management plan is, Dyer did it for us, so now since we needed this fast turnaround on a design for the actual airport work so we can meet the December deadline, we just went back to Dyer and they're doing it for us.
Are they presenting a sort of bid for what it would take, or?
Yeah, they're doing the actual engineering,
Okay.
yeah, so they're getting close to finishing it. So it's plans that would be used to go out for bidding, once we hopefully secure the funding.
Understood, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. I know the emergency plan task force was chaired, or Mari was on that, so we'll move forward with that one unless City Manager Brannigan has an update on the emergency plan task force.
The only thing I'll say is that our planner is working on the details, and I don't have anything to report at this time, but it's in process.
Thank you. Veterans Memorial Task Committee report.
Mr. Brannigan?
Nothing, well, I would like to say that one of the Veterans Memorial, which is over there by the theater, we're doing some sidewalk repair. It's been something that this city council has been wanting since I've been here and before then. But it's always been a shortfall because of funds. We were fortunate enough to request assistance of the county public works to help us in getting that work done. Now that the weather, it's amazing that we're doing concrete work in December, but that was the first opportunity we had where they can come in and assist our public works, because we only have 2 staff, to be able to do the work that we're doing. So we have 3 sections of sidewalks that are being done right now, and one of those is the Veterans Memorial right there. So we're looking at pouring concrete tomorrow.
Wow.
Thank you. Any questions?
Do we have a celebration when it happens?
Yeah. Nice ribbon cutting just around that section of sidewalk. Thank you so much. Mossbury Trail.
I can add.
Madam Mayor, we don't have both, we lost both of them.
Okay.
I'd kind of like to be back on that committee.
Okay. I have already kind of a note to myself about a future agenda item about making sure there's new appointments.
We need
So
to restructure all the committees really.
correct. Yeah. City Manager Brandon, did you have something to add though?
Yeah, there was a group of people that met. We were looking at, we had a representative from the Connell Foundation that came to Dunsmuir about a week and a half ago. We had just a day where it broke from the rain, and we were fortunate enough to where we did a tour out to the Mossbury Falls to show this individual what we're looking at. And the trail is marked, it's been surveyed, planned, environmental. So we're able to take the representative out there to take a look at the trail and hopeful that we can receive some additional grant funds to make that come to fruition.
Thank you. Any questions?
Well, if you could, Mark, for the audience or the public out there, could you explain what the trail is you're talking about? You're talking about the one on the, down from the railroad tracks, but on the west side of the river, is that right?
Correct. The trail that's being proposed, that's in design, takes from our current Hedge Creek Falls Trail. And if you've been out to Hedge Creek Falls, you go around the falls, around the back, and the trail continues up to a lookout point. So if you're at that lookout point and you look across the river, right now you can see all the way through where the railroad tracks are. But down from there, the proposal is to put a suspension bridge, a walking bridge that would take the people from that side of the river across the Sacramento, and then they can come back down onto Union Pacific property. So we're working with Union Pacific and trying to get the okay to have the rights to put a public trail in there. Right now, that request is in Omaha right now. So their real estate, they're not moving as fast as we'd like, but we have spent, the Shasta Trails Association is really the engine behind this, who's been doing a lot of this work. They're doing an amazing job. But they've gone out there and they have this trail identified, and it keeps the people off the tracks. The number one thing we're trying to do is improve safety of the people that are coming to Dunsmuir to experience the beauty that we have to offer. So it's kind of a joint effort. Union Pacific doesn't want anybody getting hurt on the tracks. We want people to come visit the city and be safe about it. So we're trying to work together and get them off the tracks. And this would bring them in an area that's down by the river. It's more of a seasonal trail, so if the water's high, there's section that will actually be underwater, but it's rare because the water doesn't usually flood for a long time. It may come up in surges and go back down. So the trail for the most part would be outside of where the river normally runs. So that's a beautiful location.
If I could add, the idea is to have a fence then that runs up to the railroad tracks and along the railroad tracks, so if somebody were to want to get under the railroad tracks, they won't actually be able to get down to the falls because there'll be a fence along their forms. So.
And then is there any future events or any future public input scheduled between the Trails Association and the general public, just to, show the schematics, kind of just gauge some input?
I think that will happen once we get more of a buy-in with Union Pacific on what they're requesting. One of the challenges right now is fencing that you just brought up, where they're wanting to get fencing across the whole trail system, where it environmentally was not really the best decision. And what we're looking for, because of the wildlife out there, we want to make sure that it's not going to impede any of the natural wildlife. But there are sections that is being proposed for fencing. A lot of steep terrain there. It's unlikely anyone would be able to get up off the trail to get to the tracks. So the areas that are of concern are the ones that we're proposing, or the Trail Association is proposing to put in. So we're hopeful that Union Pacific will buy out on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Beautification Committee report? None? Okay. I will now move us into announcements and public comment. So are there... Yep. So is there anybody who would like to make a public comment to the City Council?
Hi, my name is Dina, and first of all, congratulations. I look forward to your leadership and direction. And I wrote some things down because I get incredibly nervous. So I'm going to read this. Okay, I own property at 5711 Sacramento Avenue. And this house was built in the early 20th century before cars. I want to point that out first. But I have an issue, and I've been seeking a resolution for this for a while. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the steps of what I've done so far. The first floor is utilized as a commercial business, and the second floor is a residence. And it's a mixed use of commercial residence, and it's common along Sacramento Avenue. I'm going to give you examples. There's a Rossell, where Blake lives, the Ruddle Cottage, where Jane Bruckfire lives and works, and Finley Fryer's nearby art studio next door is where he lives and he works. And then Linda Price, she has a graphic art studio on the first floor of her building, and she lives on the second floor with her husband. And these are examples of people who were not told by the city of Dunsmuir that they couldn't live in their residence because they didn't have off-street parking. So that brings me to this. The business managers of, Leslie's business managers, Angelina and Joe Cerna, they attempted to transfer the Dunsmuir utilities into their name this summer. And to their surprise, they were told they couldn't, and were handed a letter written in 2009. And the 2009 letter explained because the business didn't have off-street parking, nobody could live upstairs. So we both reached out to every single city council member in an effort to resolve the issue. And Leslie went to the planning commission and asked the city planner and the full body if they knew how to resolve the issue. And no one had any answers or any suggestions. I called the mayor, and I called the vice mayor, and both of them asked, and I asked them both, can we put this issue on the agenda so we can at least get some answers, and maybe we can get I can get some answers, get some direction. They both said they referred me to Mark Brannigan, the city manager. And so I called Mark Brannigan. I called him and I talked to him for a long time. And that conversation did not go well. I sent him an email after that conversation and I asked that you respond in writing and provide me what your position on the city's, what the city's position is on my property. And you haven't ever responded. And it's still an issue. And so I'm asking you to please let me know what the city's position is so I can understand how to resolve this. So I have copies of the email. Can I approach you and give you copies of my email?
If you could maybe just give it to our clerk and we'll get those. Perfect. Meeting.
And so that's an email there that I asked Mark Brannigan to respond in writing. Tell me what the issues are. Why can't anybody live in the house that has been occupied by my son through his college years from 2010 on, and suddenly now nobody can live upstairs? I don't think it's fair to make me do anything more than anybody else has ever done along Sacramento Avenue. I'll jump through whatever hoops you've got. I'll pay whatever you got, but I need some direction. But I also don't think it's fair to make me do anything more than any other business or property along Sacramento Avenue has done in order to enjoy my property the way they have enjoyed their property.
Thank you, that's 3 minutes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And if you have, for anyone in the general public, if I do cut you off at 3 minutes, and if you have anything else that you're writing, please, okay, thank you. Please feel free to submit some written correspondence to us, and we'll get back to you. All right, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Mayor, council members, and especially and welcome to the new council members. My name is Rick Chan. I live on Butterfly Avenue in Dunsmuir. I understand that congratulations are in order for having secured the contract between the city of Dunsmuir and Etna Brewing Company with regard to our water bottling plant. I admit, however, that I missed the presentation or rollout or discussion to the extent that there was any. I would have welcomed the opportunity to ask a few basic questions, such as, will they be bottling anything other than pure water? Would they be having any additives or infusions? Would they ever use plastic bottles? Would they transport, store, or use chemicals in quantity and concentration that if an accident should occur, it might pose an environmental hazard? And also, in view of the fact that the previous lessee, Flora Inc., was restricted to a limit of 50 million gallons of water extraction per year of Dunsmuir's 457.2 million gallons annual allocation. I wonder what limitations there might be. It seems that the only limitations would be Dunsmuir's water delivery capability and their efficiency. And so are we to assume that their operations would have no impact negatively on our water pressure? After all, Pace Engineering has recommended that we build a second water plant predicated on the justification that ISO concerns of the city's ability to fight fire with less than sufficient water pressure, especially in certain areas such as our school. I bring these questions and others before you, not to sound like an alarmist, but to point out the possible advantages of having public discussion with the citizenry, if for no other reason than to dispel what hopefully are unwarranted concerns.
Thank you, that's time. If you have one more statement.
One more thing, and also so that we may not suffer the consequences of not having adequate assessment by having a dialogue with the citizenry. So I urge the City Council to have a transparent, open, and more inclusive dialogue with our citizenry, because I believe that all of us have an interest in any enterprise that might reflect upon what puts us on the map, the best water on earth.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, is there another public comment?
Congratulations, you guys.
Thank you.
I'm a little nervous, so I'm not good at public speaking. All right, so I'm Angelina Sermon. I live at 5711 Sacramento. I am business manager of Pirate Browns here in Dunsmuir. We were really excited at a ribbon cutting back in July. You guys were there, council members. Supervisor Ed Valenzuela. And as Leslie was saying about being grandfathered in, we were hoping that the city would grant us permission to get our recreational license or the temporary license. We still haven't heard anything or gotten any kind of approval on that yet. We are still currently just medical marijuana dispensary, and we're suffering greatly because we have to compete with all these other dispensaries around us that are recreational. At times, I can only have 15, 20 people a day because I am only medical, not recreational, and also the taxes and everything will help the city, you guys. I just heard that in the state of California imposed that December 31st, there is a deadline for a temporary license application again. And all we need to apply for this is for you guys to just give us a letter of approval to begin this process. So I would appreciate any help that I can get in order to get the ball rolling, please, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Thanks.
Madam Mayor, I could, I know they're not meeting, but he has been the beautification committee who would normally give that report, so.
I'm not doing that right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you know.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Bruce. Tim Hole, and as some of you know, I occasionally write articles for the local weekly paper, and I did a story about a month ago, I think it was, on the status of the repairs for our water and sewer system. One of the reasons I did that is because I didn't really know what the status was. Personally, as a citizen of Dunsmuir, you know, what the status of that was. And so I wanted to know, and I suspect that most of the people in this town don't really know what their money's going for. So I'll be very brief. We're all paying higher rates, you know, for our utilities. And I think it would make sense for the city to inform us where our money's going, or at least what progress is being made toward the repair of the water and sewer systems, which we know badly need repair. I will say that what I learned was that approximately 1/4 of our aging water pipes have been repaired, and I believe it's like 1/5 of the sewer pipes have been repaired. So there's a lot of work to be done, and you know, it's a monthly report, maybe from the city manager, something you put with the utility bills, whatever. But really, you know, I think you really are sort of obligated to tell people, where their money's going. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, you guys. I'm Devin Warner. Congratulations to all the new city council members and the continuing city council members. I want to second what Mr. Holt just said. I spent a little time speaking to the public in advance of the election, and that was one of the big issues that I got feedback on. The other issue is it's December. We've had a little rain. I hope that means the fire season is over, and we've got a few months to work on fire safety. And I have a few ideas for some proposals for what we can do. Defensible space around people's houses, especially for those who do not have the wherewithal to do that for themselves. I think the city needs to take that up. We have a number of elderly people in town who do not have the physical capacity to cut brush. It's very pricey. My sister and I spent quite a lot of money last summer taking our brush up to the dump station in Mount Shasta. I'd love to see some kind of a green waste facility here in town so that it's not cost prohibitive for people to haul their brush. And one final thing, which I think is very important, we just learned, I think, a big lesson in the fire in Paradise recently, was that there are a lot of unaccounted for people. And as I said, we do have a number of elderly and retired people in this town. And I think we need an accounting of who they all are, where they live, and some kind of a neighborhood buddy system so that in the event of an actual evacuation, we know who our neighbors are that need help. And I would be willing to participate in this process, and I'm proposing it as something that Dunsmuir ought to take up, and I'd like to be part of it. And I hope to hear something back from you guys in the near future about this, because as I said, we've got a few months, and let's not just let it happen and next summer. Let's do something now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other public comments? And again, the public comment section is open for any items that are not on the agenda or on the consent agenda. Great.
Congratulations, everyone. My name is Leslie Wild. I live at 6200 Eleanor Street, and there's some trees that are owned by the city of Dunsmuir that are big, giant oak trees, and they're leaning right over my house. You look down, Mr. Brannigan, but you know I'm waiting for you to take some action. These trees are, if they fell, the one that's leaning and it's almost touching my roof, my insurance man, his name is Mr. Palfini, he's the mayor of Weed. He sends me letters that say, you've got to talk to the city about getting rid of those trees. So for the last 2 years, I've been trying to get the city to come out and cut the trees. Mr. Brannigan arranged for some tree cutting company that came out and has done a bid in 2017 and again in 2018. But I'm concerned that when that tree falls, it'll damage my home, it'll make it unlivable, it'll cost the city a fortune because the city will have to pay for the damages. And I think the bid came back at like $14,000, and that's probably a lot of money, but I still think that would save the city a lot more than if it fell and destroyed a historic home on Eleanor Street. And then my second thing is you didn't allow public comment on your audit, your financial audit. So I do have a quick comment about that. I have some findings. I find that it's hard to attend finance committee meetings. They're held in the back of City Hall, in the break room, after 5 o'clock when the door is locked. So it's been hard for a member of the public to attend your finance committee meetings. And even when I did attend, members of the finance committee would sit with their backs to the public. And so it wasn't very conducive to listening and learning, and public comment wasn't really welcomed. And I wasn't surprised to hear the city auditor have some issues. I have two findings. There's no other city with only 1,500 people that has this much staff. There's no other city with 1,500 people in the state of California that has a city manager that makes $110,000 and a full-time finance director and the staff level that we have. It's not surprising to me that the general fund is struggling to pay their salaries and benefits and looking for ways to maximize the enterprise funds to pay for things that should come out of the general fund. I know that's bad news. And I have a lot of faith that Blake should stick around. We need a finance director. So that's my comment about that.
Thank you.
Marty, welcome to our new city council, and congratulations to you all and our finance director. That's a real plus. My name is Barbara Cross. I live down on South First Street, which is technically Siskiyou County, which I regret, did not know that when I bought my house. But to get back to a current theme that's running through here on our natural environment, today when I was out walking, I saw, and I see this in all seasons of the year, spring, summer, fall, and now winter, burning of leaves. And it seemed like today I saw 3 houses. The smoke has settled in the canyon. It had not gone up. It often doesn't go up. This is exactly what it does. We are still breathing unhealthy air. I check it almost daily after the fires on my Siri tells me what our air quality is every day. It has not been under 50 in I can't tell you how many weeks, even with all this rain. So I would like to suggest, I think the time for burning leaves in one's backyard should be ended. That is an anachronism from another century. We should not be putting that pollution. I don't burn my leaves, and I have a lot of trees. They just kind of die if you let them. They become mulch. They don't ruin the lawn. They're just there, and then the leaves go and disintegrate. My neighbors that burn are right up against the mountain across. I'm on the riverside. They're on the South First Street is just one street. No streets behind it after a certain point. They are so close to just shooting up that hill. Hopefully that won't happen now, but I would like you to consider an ordinance that that we don't burn leaves in this town anymore. We have been so close to being wiped out by fire, which Dunsmuir has in its history, several times been wiped out, especially the downtown. We don't need to be doing this anymore, and we need clean air. We badly need clean air. So this would be a big step toward it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Yes. You're going to step up real quick.
Hi, I'm Harris Petrick. Congratulations, everybody. I just had one comment. It's actually for everybody here. I'm here every council meeting, and a lot of times there's one person here in the audience. And some of the issues that have been brought up have actually been addressed at some of the meetings. So I would just love it if more people were here and you guys were a part of this, because it's awesome to see you here. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments?
David Hicks, 5630 Dunsmuir Avenue. Congratulations to all the new council members. Look forward to watching you with eagle eyes to see what you're up to once you get there. And I have the greatest optimism for this council going forward. I would like to make a suggestion to the mayor that the city, if there isn't one, I don't think there is, should have a real long-term planning committee that does serious long-term planning that would include capitalization in terms of investments for a town. So for example, a wood chipper, I don't know, does the city have one? You know, I've got, Julie says yes.
Right.
There may be some way to help alleviate, using that chipper, alleviate some of the fire risk to the town. I lived through the Oakland firestorm. Right near my house was an oak tree about this thick, maybe 6 feet thick. It burned, and there was only a pile of gray powder where that tree was. And I actually had to run up a hill through one of those fire cyclone things where gravel was hitting me in the face that was being vacuumed up, and get our dog and come back down the hill, and I got to be a hero to my 11-year-old daughter. So, but, I mean, that was a nice thing, but every one of my neighbors' houses burned to the ground. Mine didn't, because all City of Albany had one fire truck, and it picked the fire hydrant right in front of our house. So it didn't go, but you know what, we wished it burned down, we felt so guilty. So guilty. So I really appreciate the remarks about clean air, clean water, you know. And so I think that there are some capital expenditures that could be made investing in ourselves over time. I know budgets are hard, and that it's not going to be an easy thing to do, but if we don't plan long-term, where are we going to go? Somebody once said, if I aim at nothing, I'll surely hit it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? All right, seeing none, I will close the general public comment and move on to number 14, announcements and reports from council and staff. Are there any announcements or reports?
What's your firing order?
Would you like to start?
Happy to, Madam Mayor. The evening is getting long, and so I took the liberty of preparing a memo with my recommendations for items that ought to appear on future city council agendas. I'll do 5 this away and 2 this away. And I'm not going to go through it now, but as we start to plan for our work in the meetings ahead, there are clearly some items of great urgency that the city simply has to address. We can't do just one thing at a time and adequately serve the citizens. And I will say generally, listening to the public comments, that I am in agreement that the city needs to do a better job of sharing information. Not every citizen is interested in utility rates, but some are. Every citizen has to be interested in fire safety and the survival of our community. Every citizen has to be interested in our infrastructure, and every citizen has to be interested in our financial viability. So these are big issues that will take time to start addressing, but it's the same sort of shout out. There's very few of us, there's a very small staff. So the great hope is if we are willing to put up the big issues, that citizens will help us on resolving the most pressing of them. It's a wonderful community, it's resourceful, it's smart, and I'm very pleased that we have a new council, a new year, a new chance to really show our pride. So thank you.
Any questions for Councilmember our
I would like to get a copy of that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't mean to leave you short.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
That's my very last word.
Thank you. All right. Councilmember Kessler, do you have any announcements, reports?
No, congratulations to you all. I would like to say that Saturday is Rotary's Pancake Breakfast for Santa. It's 7 o'clock at the community building. Be nice to see you all out there.
7 to...
7 to 10, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Will you take photos with dogs?
I'm sure we will accommodate.
Okay, I don't have kids that have dogs, but still want that Christmas card. Thank you. Councilmember Bryan.
I would just like to, as soon as possible, perhaps the next meeting, fill our committees with appointees.
And then Councilmember Deutsch.
No, ma'am.
All right. Just for the action, just for clarification, could we make a motion for some future agenda items? Is that typical of
We
this?
normally do that afterwards at the end of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure because I just saw adjournment. Okay, thank you so much. I do not have any announcements or reports from myself. Again, thank you so much for everyone's trust in me to do this. I am learning. Even though I sit through council meetings, it's still very different leading them. So please be patient with me as I go through the ringer here. I will move it down to number 15, the consent.
Ma'am,
I'm sorry. Oh,
you want to do staff too?
oh, yeah,
So I would start with Mark and then go over to them.
thank you.
Yeah.
All right, City Manager Brannigan.
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing to report from me.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council.
Welcome back.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Welcome back.
Thank you very much, it's good to be back. I was out of seat for a little while, but I was going to report briefly on the October statistics from the Sheriff's Office. We're still compiling the November statistics, so hopefully we can report on that next meeting. So as of the end of October, our Dunsmuir patrol hours for the month of October are just under 592 hours. Total calls for service in the month of October is 153. That included self-initiated activity. Total miles driven were 1,028. We pulled 19 case numbers in Dunsmuir. Traffic-related stops were 19, 15 citations, 5 arrests, which included 1 felony and 4 misdemeanors. Some details on the arrests: we had 1 drug arrest, a couple of driving on suspended license arrests, a public intoxication arrest, and a domestic violence arrest. Some other details on calls for service: we did take 1 burglary in the month of October, 7 petty thefts, a couple of assault and battery reports, and 1 vandalism and 14 disturbing the peace reports. So, any questions for me?
Did you resolve the burglary?
No, we did not. Most of those, unfortunately, do go unsolved.
Thank you.
Julie, did you have anything?
No, good to go. Thank you very much. Welcome aboard. Come see us anytime. Excited to meet you and get to know you, and we're there every day.
Thank you. Right. We will move now to item number 15, the consent agenda.
I make a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
All right. Is there any discussion on the item? Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I heard Peter first.
First, that's fine. Go for it.
First. All right, there's a first and a second to approving the consent agenda items. Letter A, destruction of public records, Siskiyou County Sheriff's Department. Letter B, check registrar, October 26th through November 1st of 2018. And letter C, authorizing signers, signers, basically, of city bank accounts. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Consent agenda items A, B, and C pass. We will now go to public hearing. I see none. So I will move on to old business. I see none as well. So we will move on to number 17, new business. Letter A, appointment of 2 planning commissioners. So in the packets, we have 2 planning commissioners who are renewing and would like to be appointed again to the planning commission meeting. So I'm not familiar with the protocols, but I would like to ask our first one, Ann Powers, if you would like to just come up to the podium and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be reappointed to the planning commission, if that's okay.
Okay, I'm Ann Powers, and I've been on the planning commission for a while, and we don't have a whole lot going on in Dunsmuir, but we work on it, whatever we can. It's usually things like paint colors and flags and things like that. But I think it's important to take part in activities like the planning commission, and we don't have a lot of other things to be involved in, so that's why I've been on it. And I think we've got a good group right now, and I'd like to continue with them.
Thank you. All right, and then I'd also like to invite up Paul Martin. Please just tell us about yourself, why you'd like to continue.
Because I'm 4th generation here. My kids are 5th and my grandkids are 6th. I got kids in the elementary school. I got kids in the high school. Got kids at Golden Eagle. I do the farmer's market with Andrea. I've been doing the Brew Fest. I've been doing a lot of other things around town. And a lot of people see me walking around with the stroller, pushing my granddaughter.
Thank you.
With pride. With pride, I might add.
All right, council members, do you have any questions or comments?
I make a motion that we accept both candidates' letters of intent.
All right, is there a second?
With gratitude.
With gratitude. I should have said that.
So Councilmember Kreisman, first, Councilmember Art, second, is there any other?
Sorry.
Yep. I was like.
My foot's stuck in your microphone cord, girl.
I wasn't quite sure if I'm just tired and just, or like,
It's moving.
Is there any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, I will move into a motion to approve both the application for planning commissioners for Am Park. Yay! All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Congratulations.
I really want to thank you again for your service so far and your wish to continue with that. It is a selfless act to serve the community in the role of planning commissioner. So thank you very much.
Now before you adjourn, ask if there's anything you get.
So, seeing no new business, we will move into future agenda items. Is there a motion for any agenda items to be placed on a future agenda?
I have nothing at the present moment.
I can let you know that we have some things coming up from the task force. Do you want to go over the dates for the two, just to let them know what we're doing ahead of time?
Which task force?
For the sewer and solid waste?
We're looking at a presentation from Pace Civil Engineering at the next council meeting for the sewer rate presentation. And then they'll be back again in January, the second council meeting in January for solid waste and hopefully the full report. But the next council meeting is the presentation on the sewer aspect of it.
And just to confirm, that's December 20th is the next regularly scheduled meeting?
I believe so.
Yes.
Thank you. So December 20th, we have a presentation from Pace. Are there any other items we know are going to be scheduled from city staff?
There may also be a presentation from Caltrans. They're wanting to come in and talk to the city council and start the public presentation about the next phase of the Highway 5 project, where they're going to take where they left off and come down to Dunsmuir. So they're looking to do a presentation as well. What else is?
Bethany?
Oh, yeah, we're looking at Siskiyou Economic Development coming to the next council meeting as well.
Would that be a presentation or action item?
Just presentation. It'll probably just be short, just to welcome the new council. They're, like I said, they're wanting to at least come today, just not to be on the agenda, but to say hello to the new council.
Okay.
Accept the audit.
Yes, that was on my list already. We should probably do that. So as far as future action items, the 1718 audit resolution, and will you be providing us with a resolution for that, I would assume?
No, resolutions.
Oh, just accepting.
Motion to accept, yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. Could you tell me the dates? What are the dates of the January meetings?
It's unlikely there'll be the meeting on January, I think it's January 3rd.
Because my question is, I'm having an operation on my foot on the 24th.
This is go for then.
Yeah, so the 17th is likely the meeting in January.
And then what's the date of the first one in February?
The 3rd of January.
Is that that week? Is that that long?
Yeah.
We got February, right?
January, February, yeah.
February 7th.
Okay, then, all right. I don't need permission to miss a meeting. I can't walk for 7 days.
Okay. We can come carry you.
All right.
I promise.
Follow chair. I like to
I got a month to work on my squats. I'm ready to do that. All right, so just for the general public, our regularly scheduled meeting should be December 20th, and in January would be January 3rd, January 17th, and then February would be February 7th.
And there may be a possibility that we may want to cancel the 3rd, but we'll discuss that obviously later on in time.
Yes.
Kids are all hungover, we all are, right?
I don't think we need 2 days. So I would like to add the action item to accept the audit for the December 20th meeting as an action item. Are there any motions for any other action items to be included?
Well, I do want to support Councilmember Bryan's comments as far as committees. And I don't know how much of
Yeah,
the restaffing of committees needs to be in full session. And do we indicate to the city manager or to you what we would like to serve on, prefer not to serve on? But I do think, because there's so much work to be done, the committee system is essential to getting started. So I would like to see an action item on repopulating the committees at our meeting of the 20th. And I really, in the sense of some of the public comments, my item 3 is plan for wildfire prevention and emergency response on a local and regional basis. We don't have that many months to get started before the 2019 fire season. So I like the notion that the city attorney put forth of an agenda committee so that there's a way we could have discussions to not waste the public's time, but at the same time,
Getting stuff done.
Yeah.
to get started.
Right.
For the sake of time, so for December 20th, I have 3 presentations, which would most likely be probably at least 15 minutes each. I'd like to.
We try to keep presentations to about 10 minutes.
But he said case engineering, they don't always work that way.
Yeah, that one there, we could make theirs a workshop,
Yeah.
so that we can keep the action items on the regular agenda.
Okay, yeah, that's my only concern about December 20th is sewer and solid waste. I would expect that to be a little bit more lengthy and in-depth, and I would like it to be, because it is pretty important for a majority of the people who live here. So I want to make sure that that is something we give enough time to. So I'm going to leave that up to you for your recommendation, Councilmember Brannigan, how you'd like to handle that with pace. For that presentation.
City manager Brannigan, not councilman.
Sorry, city manager Brannigan.
But you're getting there.
I'm getting there.
You're doing good.
My brain runs a little bit faster than I can handle. So as far as the action items for committees, it would be nice to do those as a workshop for myself, just to reiterate what the mission of those are and to make sure that those are still on point for the objectives moving forward, as well as doing the assignments. But I do understand Councilmember Art's concern for fire. So if it's okay with the council as far as an action item for the next city council meeting, because we anticipate a longer workshop for sewer solid waste, would it be all right to just talk about the emergency task force assignment on the next agenda and then set up a workshop for the others? Or is there other pressing matters for those other committees?
Well, I was thinking that one of the easiest ways to do it, I think Peter mentioned it, is to ask everyone to turn in what they would like to be on, and then turn it into you and city manager, and you can see if there's any holes, in terms of people more than 2 people wanting a particular committee, and then if there's any conflicts, we can come back and deal with those individually. I don't think we need to schedule a special session.
Okay.
And if there are no people that want to serve on some of the committees, maybe those are the first to get rid of.
Okay, or
Is
reset.
that fine with everybody?
That's fine.
Are you okay with that?
That would help you, wouldn't it, Peter?
Yeah, no, there are some committees that I would argue, again, as the city attorney said, you don't want too many committees.
Yeah.
And I think currently we have too many committees, and I think we're missing 1 or 2 committees. So I don't know when we have that discussion. I leave that to the savants.
Okay, I will entertain that. So if possible, could we send our first, second, and third choice to city manager Brannigan?
Well, you see which ones you want to be on.
Correct.
And then you figure out from there how you stack them.
Yep, and so we'll work together to make sure those are all stacked and those are clarified, and we can add that action item if that's all right.
Madam Mayor, excuse me, do each of you have a copy of the committee as they are presented right now?
I got it.
You got it?
Yep.
You're great. Okay.
Yep, thank you. Okay. All right, and then as far as the discussion of wildfire hazard, after the committees are assigned, would you then be okay, Councilmember Art, with placing the wildfire matter on the first meeting for January?
Yeah, and actually, I think we should think about the format. I mean, rather than us talking and 3-minute comment, if we could do something closer to a town hall meeting or anything that's more inclusive, I think we need to hear from the people what their big worries are.
Okay, So we'll shoot for that event, either happening during a regularly scheduled meeting or a separate, public meeting in January, as soon as
Maybe have
possible.
a speaker representative from CAL FIRE, or
Exactly.
Well, in our fire department.
maybe even OES to let us know. It might be nice to know, because I've seen it firsthand with the floods. They're here to help us, and nobody really knows because we never got evacuated. If they had got evacuated, they had food, cots, all kinds of stuff. But it's nice to know that they're there for us, and reassuring, especially if we're going to come up with a plan, and it's all about reassuring people, getting everybody in, so we're all on the same page.
And City Manager Brannigan, would it be okay to talk to our planner Arlene about getting an update for the local hazard mitigation plan timeline in January? Would that be all right?
Yeah, that'd be fine. And Julie, can you make a note for Arlene and for our fire chief, Dan?
Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that we're gonna have a good year next year, guys, huh?
I've got another item I think we need to add, and I don't know if it's, in fact, it probably isn't to this agenda, but I want to get into the stream right now, and that is when we talk about the Mossbury Falls and the new trail, what we're really talking about as far as the city's aspect is concerned is we need parking. We have that limited amount of parking, and some way or other, we're gonna have to start thinking about what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it, so that's gonna come up some way. It probably would be something under the public space or public buildings committee if that. Facilities, that continues to exist, but that would certainly be there, and I would think that would continue because you got sidewalks and other things on there too. But I just want to make sure we know we have to start looking ahead to that, or else we're gonna get bit in the butt when all of a sudden everyone comes for the grand opening and there's no place to park.
Correct. I'm going to actually just refer that one to the city manager, just because I know we're waiting on some Union Pacific discussions, things like that. So I will refer that back to Mark, and we'll place that on the agenda when it's appropriate.
Yeah, if I can, Madam Mayor, add that part of the budget process going forward, as the auditor mentioned, we're looking at a mid-year budget review after the holidays.
Correct.
So that may be one of the other items on the agenda for the 17th. After that, in February, we start, as staff start working on the next year's fiscal budget and the finance committee, probably in March. We'll start bringing them in. But as leading into the next year's budget, one of the things that we need to identify are the goals. So I'm hearing this energy, which is a wonderful energy to get things done. And a big part of that is the resources available for the city to actually get those things achieved. And being a small city with limited resources, we can get things done when we focus accurately on what's most important and what are the resources so that we can hold that accountable. So that's one of the things I'm looking at beginning also in the February-March timeframe, is bring to the council, if the council should so choose, is to start the discussion of goals, and not just the goals, but also the resources that will be assigned to those goals, so they can make sure we can be successful.
I would agree with that, and actually one of the things I would like to add is, similar to Councilmember Arth's list, and a couple of things that have been talked about, I would like to include the Planning Commission, if possible, on a joint meeting to talk about those goals and plans as well, since they are the Planning Commission and they deal with plans. So I would like to ask the Planning Commission if they would entertain that and work with Arlene and see if that would be possible to make sure they're involved as well.
We did that once before.
Yeah, we usually do it once a
Time to
year.
do it again.
Yep.
I
think
can
it'd
do
be
once
nice.
a year.
Yeah, that'd be great to do in late January, February. So my plan is we're starting to project out a couple of months. So is there anything else on the December 20th besides the action on committees, action on accepting the audit, and then the 3 presentations mentioned?
And I think that's a pretty much full vote.
Yep.
The only thing that occurs to me is we're getting closer to getting some snow, is with our very small public works staff, does everybody know what's gonna happen and is not gonna happen once the snow starts falling in terms of plowing schedules? And I know Mount Shasta has a senior citizens program, I don't think we do, but at least again, in terms of informing the community, it'd be nice to know what they could reasonably expect to happen and not happen.
Yeah, I can tell you that at last weekend we were expecting snow, So the public works staff, we were down to one full-time public works person. We're back to two now. And they've been working on getting all the equipment set up. So at the last threat of snow, they had the cinder truck and they had a plow ready. So, and we had people put on standby. So we keep an eye on the weather. And depending on the outlook, we'll have people, at least one person that's paid to be on standby for the weekend or the night, and then we'll have other people on call. So if it does hit, they come out for us.
Is that enough of an update for you, or would you like additional information?
I think that's fine for now.
Thank you. So it sounds like December 20th is okay. I have a tentative fire public meeting in January. I'd like to get someone assigned to that emergency task force first, because they're going to be hopefully heading that. Mossbury Trail recommendation to city manager to get back to us once that moves forward to discuss parking, other designs and public input, January budget adjustment, as well as mid-year budget review, tentative goal setting, January, February, and then March, begin budget with planning goals in mind. Councilmember Bryan, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Councilmember Deutsch?
No, ma'am. Oh, actually, before we close, I do have one thing I'd like to say is just, I wanted to point out something that I think should be recognized. It's the city of Dunsmuir. We've been, I think, very unique here in the county. For the last two times around, we've ended up with two young council members, two people from the younger generation being on the council. I just think that's something wonderful that the other cities haven't had. So I just want to recognize how special it was that you both stepped forward and that you're taking the leadership role that you are.
Thank you.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Just real quick, anything else for future agenda items? I just want to make sure.
Okay.
You're good?
I would also like to add that I believe I have another one or two things possibly for the agenda. I don't have them handy or can't remember them as well. But I will be in the office Monday, Tuesday, and tomorrow as well. We're doing interviews for our financing technician position. And then Monday, Tuesday, I'm looking to try to get time in to do whatever staff report I have to do for the agenda. Then I'm planning to be out of the office. I'm on a board that I have to be in Sacramento for Wednesday, Thursday. So I'll be out of the office Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, back on Monday to get the agenda finished and posted. So
We'll figure out a schedule and make sure it works. I'll get in contact with you.
all right.
Councilmember Chris?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Nay?
The most important vote of the year.
Adjourn.